Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Ottoman Empire series on AI Deen Vision. And today we continue our exploration of Sultan Abdul Hamid II's complex reign, focusing on different aspects than our previous episode. While episode 16 chronicled the political narrative and major events of Abdul Hamid's rule, today we delve deeper into the substance and impact of his policies. We'll explore his comprehensive reform programs, his pioneering pan-Islamic vision, his diplomatic maneuvering between world powers, and how these shaped the Ottoman Empire's final decades. Sultan Abdul Hamid II has been called many things: a paranoid despot, a brilliant reformer, the last true Ottoman sultan. But perhaps most accurately, he was a ruler desperately trying to preserve an empire caught between traditional values and modern necessities, between Islamic identity and Western pressure, between imperial nostalgia and inescapable decline. In this episode, we will analyze how his educational reforms transformed Ottoman society, how his pan-Islamic vision created a new imperial ideology, how his diplomatic approach played European powers against each other, and how his policies ultimately influenced modern Turkey and the wider Muslim world. The architecture of reform, Abdul Hamid II's reign is defined by his systematic modernization program, which integrated education, healthcare, infrastructure and administration into a cohesive architecture of reform. Education. Recognizing the need for educated citizens, Abdul Hamid expanded state schools from 200 to over 10,000, including primary, ibtidai, secondary, rustiya, idadi, and specialized institutions like the Civil Service Academy, Malkiya, and War College, Harbiya. Unlike earlier elite-focused reforms, these schools reached provincial towns, making primary education nearly universal in urban areas by 1909. The curriculum blended Islamic studies with modern subjects like mathematics and science, creating a generation of modern yet Muslim Ottomans. Ironically, many young Turks who overthrew him, including Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, were products of these schools. Healthcare, modern hospitals, such as the Hamidiye Etfal Hospital in Constantinople, advanced pediatric care, while the Imperial Medical School trained doctors in Western practices. The Ottoman Red Crescent Society expanded, providing aid during wars and disasters, symbolizing public welfare commitment. Urban development, cities like Constantinople gained water systems, sewage networks, gas lighting and electricity. Public parks and government buildings in the Ottoman Renaissance style transformed urban landscapes. Modern municipal councils improved local governance, laying foundations for contemporary Middle Eastern cities. Transportation. Railways grew from 1,500 kilometers in 1876 to 5,800 kilometers by 1908, including the Hejaz and Baghdad railways, connecting agricultural regions to ports. Modern roads enhanced trade and centralized control. Bureaucracy. The administration was reorganized with streamlined ministries, standardized procedures, and merit-based appointments, creating a professional civil service. Agriculture, model farms and agricultural banks promoted modern techniques, while the agricultural school in Halkali trained experts to boost productivity. Abdul Hamid's reforms were comprehensive, but they carried a contradiction. The educated and efficient systems he created fueled political aspirations that challenged his autocratic rule, aiding the Young Turk Revolution. Pan-Islamism as imperial strategy. Abdul Hamid's pan-Islamic vision was a strategic response to European colonialism, emphasizing his role as caliph to unite Muslims globally and bolster Ottoman legitimacy. Hejaz Railway. This railway, linking Damascus to Medina, facilitated pilgrimage and strengthened Ottoman control in Arabia. Funded by Muslim donations worldwide, it symbolized religious and strategic unity. Holy sites. Renovations of the Kaaba, Prophet's Mosque and Dome of the Rock reinforced Ottoman guardianship of Islam's sacred places. Diplomacy. Abdul Hamid sent envoys to Muslim communities from Morocco to Indonesia, fostering solidarity. During the 1877-78 Russo-Turkish War, Indian Muslims supported the Ottoman cause, showing the vision's impact. Internal policies. Religious scholars, ulama, gained influence in state decisions, and the Sheikh-ul-Islam became a key political figure. State schools emphasized Islamic instruction, while madrasas were modernized. The Hamidiye Library in Constantinople became a hub for Islamic scholarship. Abdul Hamid's pan-Islamism aimed to counter Western hegemony, but the empire's military and economic weaknesses limited its effectiveness. It also strained relations with non-Muslims and faced competition from nationalist movements, including Arab, Albanian, and Kurdish identities. Diplomatic balancing and great power relations. Abdul Hamid inherited an empire surrounded by predatory powers: Russia, Britain, France, and Austria-Hungary. His defensive diplomacy exploited their rivalries to preserve Ottoman independence. Germany, post-1877 Russo-Turkish War, Abdul Hamid cultivated German ties marked by Kaiser Wilhelm II's 1898 visit. German advisors trained the army, and German firms built railways offering loans with fewer conditions. Britain, he leveraged British fears of Russian expansion, securing support during the 1877-78 crisis when British naval presence deterred Russian occupation of Constantinople. France. French banks held significant Ottoman debt, but Abdul Hamid balanced economic concessions with resistance to political demands, cultivating French public opinion. Russia. He made targeted concessions like limited Straits access while defending Ottoman territories, avoiding major conflicts. Armenian question. Facing European pressure for Armenian reforms, Abdul Hamid promised changes to deflect criticism, but limited measures contributed to tensions, culminating in the 1894-96 massacres. Cretan crisis, 1896-98. He accepted Crete's autonomy under European pressure, but maintained Ottoman sovereignty, manipulating rivalries to limit foreign influence. Abdul Hamid's intelligence network and personal oversight of diplomacy ensured no major territorial losses from 1882 to 1908. However, constant maneuvering drained resources, and shifting European alliances like the Triple Entente reduced his strategy's effectiveness by 1909. Economic transformation and financial challenges. Abdul Hamid pursued economic modernization despite severe constraints from foreign debt and the Ottoman Public Debt Administration, OPDA, which controlled key revenues. Infrastructure, railways, and modern ports in Beirut, Izmir, and Constantinople boosted exports. Steamship lines expanded trade with Europe and Asia. Agricultural banks provided loans, and model farms demonstrated modern techniques. Exports like cotton and tobacco grew significantly. Industry, the industrial school trained technicians, and modest tax incentives spurred textile and food processing industries, though growth lagged behind Europe. Revenue, government revenue nearly doubled from 1880 to 1908 despite territorial losses. The OPDA's control and foreign concessions limited fiscal flexibility. Abdul Hamid encouraged Ottoman Muslim merchants and reorganized religious endowments, vakif, for development, though this alienated religious authorities. Economic growth was uneven, with Western Anatolia advancing while peripheral regions lagged, fueling discontent in Arab provinces. Cultural and intellectual currents. Abdul Hamid's reign coincided with a cultural renaissance despite censorship, shaping the empire's final years. Literature, novels by Halit Zia Usakligil, Aski Memnu, and poetry by Tevfik Fikret critiqued society, using simplified Turkish that anticipated language reforms. Theatre, Abdülhak Hamid Tarhan's plays and Gulu Agop's Ottoman theatre introduced modern techniques, often via historical allegory. Visual arts, Osman Hamdi Bey's paintings blended Western and Eastern styles, while the Ottoman Renaissance architecture seen in Sirkeci railway station symbolized selective modernization. Journalism, newspapers like Ikdam focused on non-political content, while exiled journalists in Paris and Cairo published critical works. Political thought, Islamism, Ottomanism, and Turkism debated the empire's identity. Islamism aligned with Abdul Hamid, Ottomanism sought multi-ethnic unity, and Turkism, led by Yusuf Akura, influenced the Young Turks. Women's voices, Fatma Aliye Hanim's writings advocated women's rights, and journals like Hanimlara Mahsus Gazete discussed education and social roles. Urban Ottomans embraced a self-conscious modernity evident in literature, fashion, and daily life, though Abdul Hamid's selective modernization, adopting technology but censoring politics, reflected his ambivalence. Legacy and historical assessment. Abdul Hamid's legacy is polarized. His reforms created enduring institutions, from schools to railways, used by the Young Turks and early Turkish Republic. His pan-Islamic vision influenced Muslim movements, from India's Khilafat movement to modern Islamism, framing Islam as a counterforce to Western hegemony. For minorities, his record is mixed. Jewish communities prospered, but Armenian massacres, 1894-96, remain a dark mark. His educational reforms advanced women's opportunities, though traditional gender roles persisted. In Arab provinces, pan-Islamism initially united Muslims, but centralization and Turkish nationalism sowed Arab nationalism. Critics argue his repression of constitutionalism accelerated the empire's collapse, while defenders credit his diplomacy and reforms with delaying it. Facing debt, predatory powers and internal tensions, his achievements were remarkable, though his autocracy had moral costs. Abdul Hamid posed a vital question: how can Islamic societies modernize while preserving identity? His synthesis, technical modernization with Islamic principles, failed, but the question remains relevant. Abdul Hamid II's 33-year reign was a period of transformation and contradiction. His reforms modernized education, infrastructure and administration, while his pan-Islamic vision connected the empire to global Muslims. His diplomacy preserved independence, but repression and ethnic tensions undermined his achievements. His legacy endures in Turkey's institutions and Muslim political thought, marking a transition from empire to modernity. Next, we explore the Ottoman Empire's final years, from the Young Turk Revolution to its collapse post-World War I. Allah Hafiz.